Police say a big reward is available for tips in the city's latest shooting.
We told you about the incident, a crash at Fontanelle Boulevard and Laurel Avenue. Police say one of the vehicles was believed to be involved in a shooting nearby when the driver ran a stop sign and collided with another vehicle. Someone believed a victim of the shooting was located in the area and transported to the hospital. They are expected to be all right.
If you have any information about this, you're urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Tips leading to the arrest of a shooting suspect are eligible for an enhanced reward of up to $10,000.